All right, Illinois lawmakers are down in our state's capital, the seat of lovely Sangamon County. They're working on a potentially $1.5 billion transit bailout bill to help fund CTA, Metra, PACE, and other state transit agencies. And joining me now are State Representative Ava Dina Delgado from Chicago, Cam Buckner, also from Chicago, both Democrats, and Republican Brad Stevens from Rosemont. It seems like this is one issue that there is bipartisan buy-in here. Everybody loves mass transit. Everybody wants to see a good mass transit system. So I'll start with you, Representative Delgado. What are the specific contours of a bill being negotiated right now, and how much is it going to cost?
Well, Paris, that's a big question. I can say this, transit is definitely a bipartisan issue. That is not something that that swings one way or another. Everybody needs access to live, work, and play, and transit is how we do it, particularly in Northeastern Illinois. So we've been talking a lot about reform. Reform is essential before we talk about any additional revenue investment. But I think that we have spent the better part of the last 4 years talking about what those reforms look like. It's all coming to fruition now, and we're looking forward to getting it across the finish line here in October.
And part of it is to have more coordination between CTA, PACE, and Metra under one unified umbrella agency. But Representative Buckner, there was this fiscal cliff that was said to be about $779 million. And then these agencies says, well, just kidding, it's actually around $200 million. Apparently, they did a lot of work to clean some stuff up. Does that slow down the urgency of getting something done?
It does not, Paris. It actually even makes the urgency more urgent, if I could say that. It shows us that the RTA in its current constitution, the current way it operates, has issues with transparency, has issues with accountability, has issues with math. And so what we have said here in Springfield is that what happened a couple of weeks ago with these new numbers is not indicative of a reason to slow down, but it's indicative of a reason for us to continue this work and make sure that we pass a bill that will be, as I've said, not a bailout, but a reset that's tied to results, reform, and accountability.
All right, Brad Stevens of Rosemont, do you have any specifics right now that you can share, or is it still all being worked out?
I think it's all being worked out. You use the term bailout. I don't think this is a bailout. I think it's getting this to the proper funding that needs to be to create a world-class transit system, not just in the Chicago metropolitan area, but in the collars and in downstate Illinois. This is transit for Illinois, and I think we're working very hard to get there. I commend Leader Delgado for the lead she's taken on this. It's her passion. I wish she'd have a better hobby, but transit's important to all of us.
All right, Representative Delgado, I'm sure you've got some trains and buses in your office here, since this is your passion. There was an advocate down there today from the Environmental Law and Policy Institute, basically saying the ideal bill here would cost about $1.7 billion if you include fixes for some of these downstate systems. Is the state prepared to pass something that large?
I think that's what we've always been aiming for, Paris. The idea is that we want to invest in the system and make it a transformational investment. So we want to make sure that we are creating a system that is a world-class system and that we're building it for the future. So we can't just talk about next year. We have to talk about what we want to see in 30 years.
And Representative Buckner, I know there was disagreement. A bill passed one chamber but not the other because folks couldn't get together on where the revenue should come from. Should it be rideshare tax increases? Should it be delivery services? What about those possibilities? Are those still on the table?
Well, listen, there was a day and age when decisions like this were made in Springfield in closed rooms behind closed doors, and they were made by a very small amount of people, and people just had to figure out how to deal with it. The reason we didn't pass this bill in May is because we needed more time to have conversations with our caucus, to have conversations with the people of Illinois about what was palatable and what was not. And so as we stand here today, there are still many things that are still on the table. We are now fine-tuning and parsing through our options. But what we're going to do is arrive at a piece of legislation that has the right mix of revenue and reform and that has accountability measures so that we're not just hanging this around the neck of the people of Illinois who need to use this system, but we're doing it in a smart way that has thought about their financial picture and what the way forward is.
So, Representative Stevens, are there like taxes or revenue options that are totally off the table right now versus some that are still on the table?
Well, right now, everything's still on the table. I think that the concern is, putting $1.5 billion, tomorrow dollars up to these agencies to work through and to utilize. I'm for let's gradually get there. We need to get the governance piece in place, and I think everybody's working towards doing that and seeing what can happen if it's on time, clean, safe, reliable transit, where we may see an uptick in dollars from just ridership. So I think that everything's on the table. I'm not ruling anything out. I may be able to vote a little bit different than the rest of my colleagues because the unique nature of my district being half Chicago, half the suburbs. But we're going to keep an open mind and we're going to keep working on this. And we need to get this done by October 30th.
Yeah, certainly you're also the mayor of Rosemont. You're there in Rosemont, and all three systems intersect out there, the Blue Line and Metro and Pace and all of those systems. Representative Eva Dina Delgado, what about the governance piece of this? There was talk that you might abolish all three separate agencies and make it just one system. And then I think the compromise was, well, you'll keep all the agencies, but there'll be way more coordination. Is that where things are headed?
So each agency has its own specific skill set, right? CTA knows how to run buses and trains in their region. Metro knows how to do commuter rail, and Pace knows how to do suburban bus and paratransit. So they're going to continue to be able to specialize in what they are good at. And what the new oversight board is going to do is be responsible for coordination across the systems, making sure that they're collaborating and working together, making sure it's one fare, it's one timetable, it's one system, it's easy to use, and people know how to use it. And hopefully people will want to use that system first before jumping in their car.
Representative Buckner, this fiscal cliff really doesn't hit until around the new year, and you're in the fall veto session right now. Are you anticipating there will be something voted on in this month of October in this veto session, or will it have to wait?
That is absolutely our plan. Our plan is with the days that we have left in our veto session, which ends on October 30th, as Leader Stevens said, that we find a way to get this done. I'll add the context here, Paris, that it is 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and we are all still in our offices in the Capitol. And so we are working feverishly to get this done, and I believe we will.
And I wonder if some of those meetings will congregate at Floyd's Thirst Parlor or Maldener's Restaurant or some of the other establishments down there in Springfield. Representative Stevens, there's other things on the agenda. Folks had talked about some energy price reform, some insurance reform. Are those things going to be taken up?
I can't speak for that. It's one of the good times to be in the super minority. That's going to be up to the speaker and his leadership on deciding what comes to the floor. I'm laser focused on transit. I think that that's the most important issue right now. But we're here willing and able to do our part.
All right, I'll bring up the representative of the majority party here. In the supermajority, Representative Delgado, what about some of those other items like energy costs and insurance?
So right now, my number one focus is transit, but what I can tell you, Paris, is that whatever we take up in the veto session, it's got to be addressing immediate needs, and it's got to be creating opportunities for people who are living in this state to be able to put food on the table and take care of their families. Those are the issues. Those kitchen table issues are the things that we are most focused on addressing right now, particularly in the environment that we're in. And that is what our focus is going to be on.
And I know Representative Buckner, the focus is not going to be on a Bears stadium in Arlington Heights and some tax relief help from the state. And in fact, you filed a new piece of legislation that might make it even harder for the Bears to leave Soldier Field. Tell us what this proposal does.
Well, it's very simple, Paris. The STARS Act, which is the Stadium Transparency and Accountable and Responsible Spending Act, really just puts some guardrails and some parameters in place on how this state deals with not just the Bears in particular, but stadium subsidies across the board. We know that there's a sordid history in this state, in this country, about billionaires being able to go to government bodies and getting a blank check or billion-dollar checks to pay for these stadiums. And for me, what I've said is I would prefer a situation where no stadium is paid for with any public money. But if there are situations where this ever happens again in Illinois, that if the people are footing the bill, the people see the receipts, right? And so all this bill does is create some accountability, some public hearings, some real economic disclosure about what's going on. And I know folks have said that the Bears have already talked about what's going to happen with their current situation, but this is my rub here, Paris, is that if anyone believes that we should just take the Bears or any sports team at their word when they say that their project is going to create a gazillion jobs and $11 billion in economic activity, if you believe that, then I've got a old racetrack in Arlington Heights that I can sell you.
Well, $11 billion, if anything created that much, then all of the state's fiscal problems would be solved. Representative Stevens, it seems like the Bears wanted to get this done in the veto session. They're not going to have the votes. It's not going to happen. Is there any appetite next year to give them this tax bill, which allows them to negotiate their tax rates with the community?
Well, as a pro-development mayor, I really like the pilot process. It brings the other taxing bodies to the table. This isn't just for the Bears. This is good for all of Illinois. I would be in favor of the pilot bill, the payment in lieu of taxes, because it does give those local school districts, park districts, and other taxing bodies the opportunity to sit down and negotiate for a mega development. I share Leader Buckner's concerns, and let's hope that we can just keep working on pro-development issues to bring more and more development, more and more jobs, and more revenue streams to the state of Illinois.
And I hear the Bears are getting a little nervous here because they wanted to break ground on Arlington Heights this year. But Representative Delgado, do you see something happening in the spring session where lawmakers could agree on that pilot bill?
One of the beautiful things about being the legislature is that we have the chance to debate and discuss all kinds of issues. And through that regular process where bills get introduced, we get a chance to hear them in committee. We get a chance to ask questions about what the policy is. And then we ultimately decide what the right policy is for the state of Illinois. So if the Bears have an idea, they want to put it forth, then we'll take it through the process. We'll take them through their paces and see what makes sense for the state of Illinois and the people who live here. And I look forward to doing that.
All right, and I know Representative Buckner, you work really hard to try and keep them somewhere in the city, but it seems like still an open question when this Arlington Heights Stadium is going to happen, and we are out of time. I do want to thank Representatives Buckner, Ava Dina Delgado, and Representative Brad Stevens of Rosemont for joining us. Have fun down there in Springfield. I miss it down there. I have some good memories of staying at the Lincoln Hotel.
We always do, Paris.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Some folks have a little too much fun sometimes. But anyway, thanks very much.
Thanks.
All right, and we're back with a final word right after this.